Heft, Iowa State Radio Color Analyst, with us now. And Eric, this in Ames has to be just a wave of excitement and giddiness that not only are they back in the Big 12 championship game, but it's the 10-win season for the first time in school history. There's a confidence about the Cyclones that probably has never existed before, right?
Well, I've been around a long time, and I can say absolutely. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun for our fans. They've enjoyed the progression, and I think that one of the things they appreciate the most is they believe it's sustainable. And with Matt having a winning record in conference play, 7 of the last 8 years, I never thought I would see that at Iowa State going back a few years ago. So it's been great. The fans are excited, obviously basketball as well.
Eric, did you have any hopes that this would be the case a month ago after that loss to Kansas? I mean, at that time, it kind of felt like their title hopes were still present, but almost dead in the water. How surprised are you that they found themselves in Arlington this Saturday?
Oh, I would say at most mildly surprised. I believe these guys have had a couple of tough outings, and Tech game kind of got away at the end, after they came back to take the lead, and then gave up the late score. And the Kansas game, that was just one of those games. But I really thought the leadership on the team, the staff, they still believed that they could right the ship, which is what they had to do. And they started playing a little bit better, got better performances from a couple of key guys on defense for sure. And all those things kind of culminated in Iowa State, being where they are.
Eric, Rocco Becht was not the hero they wanted a couple years ago. He was just kind of like, well, Rocco Becht's going to be the starter because of all these things that have happened. But that has been just a joyous boon to them because he is not only really good, he's also really good in the fourth quarter, which is, I don't know if that's a teachable skill, is it?
I don't think it is. I mean, he's got that factor. But I will say this. Prior to the start of last season, when we found out a quarterback was not going to be back, it was going to be a competition between Hunter Dekkers and Rocco Becht. That's how much belief that the coaches had in Rocco and his ability to be a real leader. They thought that's an area where he just shined, and it just came through time after time in practices and everything that they were doing. So, because he'd been around for a redshirt year, and they really thought he could be the guy. Now, he's certainly exceeded over 3,000 yards passing in each of his freshman and sophomore seasons. It's been great, but you nailed it. His ability to make plays with the game on the line is something that we've never seen here, at least in the almost 50 years I've been around here.
Eric, have you seen many seasons where the injuries have piled up, especially in certain spots like at linebacker like they did for the Cyclones? I think that's maybe what I'm most impressed by is just the ability to handle adversity, knowing how tough some of these depth issues were at times this season.
Oh, absolutely. And it started in spring, with losing a potential starter in spring practice in Carson Willick. And then Caleb Bacon goes out on a special teams play in the first quarter of the first game. Then you have injuries we were down to, I'll tell you what, we're playing Baylor and somebody gets hurt. I can't remember which one it was. There's so many, I can't keep track of them all. And number 41, Ryland Barnes comes in. I looked over at my broadcast partner, John, and I said, who the hell's this? I didn't even really know. He was a walk-on. I mean, he was fourth string in the spring. But he came in, started some games, and did a pretty good job. But when I mentioned some of the guys have stepped up in the last 3 weeks, in particular, Jack Sadowski, a guy who started every game as a true freshman middle linebacker last year and hadn't played really this year. He stepped up and played well in that spot. So that's one of the things that's really made a difference for Iowa State. That and getting Will McLaughlin, the guy who had started every game last year, he came back and was able to play for the first time 3 weeks ago. So those things really kind of got things back on track in terms of just communication, because these linebackers, we were starting 3 freshmen. When we played Iowa this year, they had, I think, something like 85 starts returning at linebacker. We had 1 between the 3, 1 career start. So it's been tough. But the injury thing has been pretty much 2 positions. I mean, you always have your nicks and bumps everywhere. the linebacker position, and the tight end position. Ben Bramer's hardly played at all this year. Tyler Moore went out. A young man from Oklahoma, Cooper Alexander, who they think is going to be a star. He played in the first game, a true freshman. He would have been a guy in the rotation. He's been out for the year. So those two positions that have really hurt. We have had guys step up, and that's been one of the keys.
Eric, Matt Campbell has always been like this steady Eddie guy. Last year, it looked like some of the fan disappointment and the complaints were getting to him. Now, winning cures all of that, obviously. But have you seen maybe I don't know, like a change would be a big thing, but maybe a slight difference in the way he's kind of approached expectations in this year and just kind of riding the wave a little bit better than he did a year ago, where he lost his cool a couple times, and that's not customary of him.
And I think only once, and he's challenged right after a loss by some purported fan. Nobody even knows who he was at a game in Athens, Ohio. It pissed him off, and it certainly would have me too. But he's really handled things. He's been even keel pretty much the whole way. And our fans have been through a lot over 133 years of football, and a lot of it hasn't been all that good. And I think most fans appreciate what he has brought and continues to bring, sustainable success at a place where that hasn't been the case. So no, I don't think he's really changed. He's been the same guy since I met him 9 years ago.
Eric, when it comes to the game on Saturday, Arizona State's obviously riding in on a bit of a heater. They are going to be without Jordan Tyson, which I think is a very important loss for them. But regardless, they're still slight favorites heading into this game. What's your opinion based on what you know about Arizona State on what the Cyclones are facing and what they can maybe take advantage of, what they need to look out for?
Well, they're probably the hottest team in the league right now, and Iowa State hasn't played its best football in the last few weeks, but they've played well enough, and I think that's kind of been the key. Number one, Iowa State's rush defense, especially in the middle of the season, typically has been a strength, and it was gashed, by some really, really talented running backs. And of course, we're going to find another great running back on Saturday in Scadaboo. But the last couple of weeks, we have defended the run much better. And once again, getting Will McLaughlin back, Sadowski coming in, and Dominic Orange starting to be the freak that Bruce Feldman called him in preseason at that nose tackle spot. Those guys have made a big difference, and I think that's going to be one of the keys. I'm super impressed with the young quarterback, Levitt, but boy, not having Tyson. It would be like Iowa State not having Jaden Higgins. But for Iowa State, we still have Jalen Knoll. They don't have anybody else that I've seen that can rise up and do the things that Tyson could do. So I think that's going to be big. And once again, I think for Iowa State, just got to keep it close, hang in there, and then let Rocco cook in the fourth quarter.
What is your assessment of Iowa State, Arizona State? Should the loser, just like many other conferences, still be in the playoff, in your opinion?
Hell, we're lucky to have the winner in the playoff.
Right,
the way that committee's going. No, I don't think so. Not necessarily, because the losers are going to have 3 losses, and I think that's kind of a line I don't know that you want to cross for any team. I don't care what league you're in. If you've lost 3, especially when a couple of them were to 6-6 teams or worse, I don't think any of them should be in. So I would say this year anyway, I would say no. Now, if we had 2 10 or 11-1 teams playing and one loses, absolutely, I think they should get in. But this year, I don't think that's the case.
Eric, I know Iowa State was in Arlington just a few years ago to play Oklahoma, came up a bit short, but what's the excitement level comparable to that? And you expecting a pretty big caravan of Cyclones fans making their way to North Texas this weekend?
I assume there'll be quite a few fans there. You never really know. A lot of them just got back from Maui for the basketball tournament, and they're looking forward to the playoff or bowl game too. So, it's always short notice. I would hope there would be a lot. But as far as the excitement, got to remember, 2020, we were playing in front of half empty or less football stadiums in the COVID year. So it was so much different, and they weren't allowed to have that many people in Dallas or in Arlington for the championship. So it's a lot different. The whole vibe is different. Everybody kind of watched it years ago, a little bit detached. I think they're fully engaged this year.
Eric Heft, Iowa State Radio Color Analyst. Eric, enjoy Dallas this weekend, and thanks for hopping on the show.
Oh, my pleasure.
Eric Heft, Iowa State Radio Color Analyst, with us here on 365 Sports.